Hello everybody, this is the Spicy Donut, also known as the Fresh Donut. And today I have the second part of my how-to video for bass. I'm going to be covering equipment today and the different equipment types of abilities that you should be looking into if you're able to get the +5 armors. So first, I'm going to start with an armor I do recommend you build. This is a smart coat. You don't necessarily need a +5. I do recommend the barrier version on this armor. That will give you a spirit up to 21, and it's got a decent HP stat at 335. Now, if you do manage to get the +5 version, there is a magic attack resistance up on it. It's very useful and good for your mages. If you ever wondered how or what to determine which unit gets which gear, you just gotta click on the conditions to equip, and it will tell you here in this drop down page. Now, when you're also building these armors, be aware that you sometimes won't always max out the stat. And here's an example. I have another +5 coat here. And on this one, I was not able to get the HP all the way up. And that was even after using my hammers. And sometimes it just happens that way. The only way I know that you can get max stats easily would be to buy the premium pass. It'll last 7 days. And you get equipment growth rate success up. But that's if you want to pay for that. I do know the last time we had I want to say it was a week long, or maybe a little bit longer than a week, where we had the success rate up buff, and I maxed out so many different armors and weapons. For example, one that I just could not max out anytime that I tried was one of the guns. And see here, even on that day, I still didn't max it out. I only had 204 out of 207, but that's the closest I've ever gotten it. So be aware that not all the times when you're leveling up your armors that you're going to get the max stat out of it. You will use a lot of seals when you're trying to max out gear. And after you used all your seals and if you awakened it all the way, you can try to, smith out some hammers into it to get the maximum. See, I have 2 hammers left on this one. I can put more HP into it to finish it out, but this is a really old gear that I had. I don't necessarily need it. And it's only at a +2. It's easy to make. I mean, if you're having difficulty trying to get, really good gear, just try to make, we call it a +0, which is just crafting the recipe and trying to get the best type out of it. I do know you can go online and look up the different types of armors that give the different types added to them, and see which one you want, because some of them have higher defense or higher spirit depending on which armor you have. Now, there's another thing when it comes to these stats, and let me show you an example with Mont, just because he's able to equip so many different things. Let's see. So Mont here has a sword that gives defense piercing rate up, which is a pretty decent sword, because you definitely want defense piercing or some sort of piercing nowadays, because with all the gear and the second VC in the game now, a lot of units are pretty resistant nowadays. So let me show you basically what not to do. So let's say, for example, the black garb here also gives defense piercing rate up. And you're thinking maybe, wow, like that's defense pierce on the armor and the weapon. But the thing is with that those stats do not stack together. You will only get basically only one of these stats. So you're kind of wasting a slot for something else. So let's say if I wanted to keep this one because it has dodge and a high evade, I would keep this armor and just change my sword to anything else that I want to utilize. I do have a variation of different swords. I could use this one that gives AP costs down. I have the good old classic +5 Ragnarok, which was like the first sword a lot of people built to a +5. It gives slash attack up 15. But it's really up to you and how you want to build your units. Some people will even build units without weapons. They'll just use nothing but armors. For example, I have the Bell Gauntlet here. It has magic attack resistance. And I can just put some other armor on. That's going to give them straight defense, like this one here. And now I have both magic attack resistance on Mont and area attack resistance. Now I wouldn't really ever use this one on Mont just because his base stat is negative in magic, and it takes a lot of magic resistance to get that out of the negative. You're better off utilizing gear that would just give you more defense or some form of other resistance. For example, Elf's Cloak gives me pierce attack resistance. It also adds a little bit more defense total. And now his defense is at 80, and that's with having Golem on. And TMRs also make a difference now because of the Trust Stones. But I'm not going to get into Trust Stones in this video. I want to keep it straight and simple, just on armors and how to utilize them. Now I know you don't have a lot of access to +5s. Just craft a recipe, make a +0 out of it. Try to max out the stat you want the most. Like, you could make this armor at a +0 and still get the defense 20 if you wanted to, as well as HP 600. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that when you're building your armors, sometimes you want to check out your vision cards to see which stats you kind of want to align with them, because the vision card stat and armor stats do stack together. Just because they're separate things, it's not like armors. If you stack the same kind of armor stats, they don't stack. You kind of want to build your unit in the way you want to. I don't know which vision cards you have already maxed out, Bass, but a simple one for, let's say, a Mont, if you just want to make them tanky overall, this one's really easy to access. The Leonis Castle. I often do find myself going back to this vision card sometimes, and the reason is because on the bestowed effects you get defense up 15 and spirit up 15. So if I throw it on him now, you can see my defense is already at 90, which is insane. And if you want to go even further, you can also just throw in, like, let's say I have the Titan here, which gives me max HP up 20%. So now Mont alone has 90 defense and a crazy amount of HP. So keep in mind what kind of unit you want to build, what you want to utilize them for. Whatever their strengths are, I recommend you keep them to their strengths. That way your units are at their peak. And this would be really useful for you when you're selecting units for your guild formations, PvE content. As far as tanks go, that's pretty much the sum of it. Now, as far as like damage types, you do have like Frederica here. I do have her with vision cards that have missile attack up in the main slot, and in the sub spot. So here's where some people get confused. I have a party here, correct? They all have different vision cards in the main slot. Let's say if I put another vision card that gives missile attack up in the party in the main slot. If I go down to party ability now, you're going to see that this missile attack does not stack with the other missile attack. And it will always take the one with the higher stat over the smaller one. You can easily get around that. All you have to do is just make sure if you want more of anything, and if it's the same stat, put it in the sub vision card slot. So as you see, Frederica has a vision card for missile damage in the main and one in the sub. And if you go to party ability again, you're going to see that I have missile attack up here. And the other one should be down here. It is lower because when you put things in a sub spot, the stats decrease, but you are able to stack it if it is in the sub slot. And the same is true with a lot of other things. For example, my Tifa here, she has a attack up in the main and attack up in the sub, and she gets the benefit from both of those cards. So be aware when equipping vision cards that if you have multiple effects in the same main spots or sub spots, they do not stack. But if you have same stats in the main and sub, they do stack. So keep that in mind. Like I said earlier, if you check the party ability button, it will tell you duplicate effect does not stack. So I think that just about covers vision cards and the armors. Just be very thorough when looking through your armors and vision cards. Try to, match what your unit's gonna do. Like, you wouldn't want to put Lamia Queen on like Yuna here, because Lamia Queen, if you look at the stats of the Esper, it doesn't give you well, I mean, it's 65 magic, but it's not very high on magic. You're better off using Espers. They give more stats to the unit you're trying to utilize for their strength. So yeah, just be very thorough about your selection. And if you have any more questions, just leave a comment down below or in Discord, and I will try to get to you on that. But for now, Bass, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.